This is apropos. Well, this week saw a major breakthrough for Syria's interim leaders in their efforts to unify the war-torn country as the Kurdish-led militia that controls the northeast agreed to merge with the new government. The deal came after days of violent clashes in a coastal region that left more than 1,000 people dead. With more on the reaction to that agreement, here's a special report from our team on the ground in northeastern Syria.
Gunfire echoes throughout the city. Hassan is celebrating. By signing a deal, Damascus and the authorities of northeastern Syria have given the population a spark of hope after some had feared the outbreak of a new civil war.
Agreement. Peace is a good thing. I hope for the best for what's next.
The agreement aims to ensure the political representation of all Syrians, recognize Kurdish rights, and integrate the civilian and military institutions of the northeast into the national structures, and calls for a ceasefire across the entire territory. It is welcomed here as an end to years of division.
We are happy to get rid of the civil war and sectarianism and become Syria. Every nation as one. This is the best. It's accomplished.
Syria is tired of 12 to 13 years of fear, displacement and bloodshed. We are all tired, Arabs and Kurds.
But some of the demonstrators are not happy with the idea that the political and military authorities who have controlled the autonomous province for a decade might lose power.
What we understand from the agreement is that they have an accord. And they are one now. We don't accept this.
He is not the only one wary of the deal. For now, it's an agreement between the two parties, but the details are still to be negotiated.
For more on this story, we're joined now by Kawa Hassan from the Middle East and North Africa programme at the Stimson Centre. Kawa, thanks so much for being with us on the programme this evening. Firstly, the security situation has remained unstable in Syria since the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Just how much of a difference will this deal make, the deal with the Kurdish militia on the ground in Syria?
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thanks for having me. So, this deal is indeed a landmark deal to begin with. And if implemented, it will be really monumental for Syria, for Kurds, and for the region. So, to what extent, to your question, to what extent the security situation will be impacted by this deal, it remains to be seen. Unfortunately, the killing still going on in coastal areas of Syria against Alawites, and the number of civilians killed and butchered is rising, even though overall the tensions in the region is decreasing. But the overall security situation in the coastal area hasn't changed dramatically. But what has changed is that this deal will pave the way for serious discussions between SDF and between Damascus, the new administration in Damascus, to work out the details and to be implemented, hopefully, as they have stated in their agreement in the deal, within 9 months. I personally think it will be difficult to have that implemented in 9 months, but we'll see how much of it will be implemented. So a landmark deal, the devil is in the detail, and hopefully both internal and regional dynamics will allow for its implementation.
And there hasn't been an awful lot of detail released so far, Kawa. How do you think this is all going to work in practice? Will the SDF, for example, be allowed to operate as a distinct military bloc within the armed forces, or how exactly is that going to play out?
Good question. We don't know yet exactly, particularly when on this particular issue. Actually, again, the devil is in the detail. So the deal itself, it says that SDF will be integrated, both the military, the SDF as a military entity, but also all the civilian administrations in northeast Syria. They will be integrated into the new Syrian state institutions. How that will be done, that is something to be, has been left for negotiations to be negotiated in different committees, committees that will deal with education, those dealing with judiciary, ISIS detainees, the prisons, the issue of economy, the management of oil and gas fields, the management of border crossing, the airport, and other issues. So all these, important issues, I think they will be definitely negotiated in the coming months, and committees have to be established. So about the exact nature of integration of SDF into the new Syrian army, that remains to be seen. Can they remain as one bloc, preserving some sort of autonomy within the northeast, or they have to be also, deployed to other parts of Syria? That actually we don't know yet. So, I think the coming months hopefully will give us, an answer to these to this question.
And do you think the deal might help to ease Turkish military pressure on the SDF? It's deemed by Ankara to be an extension of the PKK.
I think so. At least for now, the Turkish response has been actually positive. Turkey has welcomed this deal, which is a very positive development, which is very good for Syria, for Kurds, for the new administration in Damascus, but also for Turkey and overall for the regional stability. So the fact that Turkey has welcomed the deal, that in itself is really a welcome, good news. And indeed, the hope is that this deal will decrease the conflict between SDF and maybe at some point end the conflict, the military conflict between SDF and Syrian National Army militias, which are supported by Turkey. But as of now, actually today, there were some clashes still, in Manbij between SDF and Syrian National Army. So for the time being, the fighting hasn't stopped, but the deal itself calls for, and this is important, I think it should be emphasized, it calls for a ceasefire across the entire Syria. And I think even if it's not implemented immediately, but in fact having such a clause is definitely important to going forward to reach also an agreement with Turkey that at some point, hopefully, this will lead to end of the conflict between SDF and the Syrian National Army.
And as well as Turkey, the US was also supporting this deal. Seemingly, it encouraged its Kurdish allies to reach an agreement. How committed do you think Washington is to retaining a presence in Syria?
Well, first of all, I think the role of the US was more than important. It was actually pivotal. So without US pivotal role, I think it would have been impossible to have a deal at this particular moment of time in Syria. So the commander of the U.S. Central Command, General Michael Kurilla, played a pivotal role in encouraging, indeed, SDF to go ahead with the negotiations, and they even, provided an airplane, for General Mazloum Abdi, the general commander of SDF, to travel to Damascus and finalize the deal with Ahmad al-Sharia. So U.S. role is absolutely key. As to the future U.S. presence and role in Syria, again, it's unclear. But from what we hear right now, at least from Washington and particularly from Pentagon, sources close to Pentagon, it seems that Pentagon is really, developing all kind of plans, scenarios for the moment that President Trump may decide to withdraw troops from northeast Syria. So I think also according to the Reuters report today, it seems that U.S. is really playing an important role also to make sure that in the event of a U.S. withdrawal, this will not lead to chaos, and it will not be a chaotic withdrawal as we have seen, in Afghanistan. So again, also this is a welcome news for Syria and also for the Kurds.
And Kawa, Kurdish leaders have been negotiating with the interim authorities in Damascus about the future of their people. What exactly are they seeking to secure in those talks?
Right. So SDF and the autonomous administration in northeast Syria for the past 13, 14 years has actually been calling for decentralization of northeast Syria, so that that part of Syria would have autonomy to administer its own affairs. What is interesting is that in the current deal, in the current version, there is no mention whatsoever of decentralization to northeast Syria. But there are other interesting, clauses, which, for instance, it calls for a, ensuring the citizenship and constitutional rights of Kurds. And it recognizes Kurds for the first time since the establishment of modern Syria as an authentic community, as part of the Syrian society. Because as we know, since 1962, hundreds of thousands of Kurds have been actually, they haven't had any citizenship rights, and they were marginalized within Syria. So they were basically stateless within Syria. So this deal, it recognized the political rights of Kurds without going into details. So I think, again, this particular issue about how much autonomy northeast Syria will gain, in Syria, that remains to be seen, and it will be, fiercely negotiated, I guess, in one of those committees to be formed in the coming period.
Kawa, we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you so much for being with us on the programme this evening. That's Kawa Hassan from the Middle East and North Africa programme at the Stimson Centre. Well, that's it from us for now. Stay